You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project. I'm a firm believer that we're all connected by our shared humanity and that finding that intersection sometimes just means having a conversation. Today, we're joined by Tiffany Sturdivant, a dynamic leader whose journey has taken her from nursing in Mississippi to the helm of one of Appalachia's most influential cultural institutions, Appalshop. Tiffany brings a deep love for community, a passion for justice, and a joyful spirit to everything she does, whether she's organizing national coalitions or preserving Appalachian stories. In this episode, I'm so excited we'll get to talk about her path from healthcare to nonprofit leadership, the power of storytelling in building community, and how the arts can be a force of resilience and transformation in Appalachia and beyond. Hi, Tiffany. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Tina. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Oh, I am so excited to introduce you to our listeners and to help them learn about Appalshop, but also about your work in so many different places. So even in the intro, we mentioned that you started out with nursing. So you've had a remarkable journey from nursing to nonprofit leadership. Can you tell us what inspired your transition from healthcare to community activism and cultural work?
Sure. So I've always been a community activist, and that journey started prior to my nursing career, actually. I attended Mississippi University for Women in Columbus, Mississippi, and I got bit by the political bug when we had a visitor from then Senator Barack Obama.
Oh my God.
He came to little old Columbus, Mississippi to talk to us about how important our voices were as young people and the power that we had and the impact that we could have on the next presidential election, which really lit a fire under me to get involved in voter education and voter. At the time, I didn't know that it would be a gateway to voter restoration. So that's how I got started in activism, right? And also my mom was a huge activist in our city, Columbus, Mississippi, and advocated for voters' rights and voter education. And so at an early age, it was important, like in our household, you know, when you turn 18, it was a rite of passage to register to vote. And my mom was like telling all of our neighbors and stuff, like, if y'all don't vote, you can't complain. So I don't hear nobody saying nothing about nothing if I didn't see you in these lines. So she really instilled that into us, into our family. And that came first. And then I was interested so nursing came about. I always was interested in helping folks. Mm-hmm. From a little kid, I wanted to be a nurse or a doctor or somebody that helped to put Band-Aids on people. I would put Band-Aids on my teddy bears and stuff. Career day, they were like, what are you going to do? I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. So I did not. When I later found out how long it took to be a doctor, I quickly made a transition from being a physician to being a nurse in college. Right after high school, I became a nurse's aide, and then I was like, "Oh, this is wonderful! I do want to be a nurse. I want to help the doctor, help the patient."
Yeah.
So, did that, graduated, and I worked in nursing. I was a nurse in 13 years prior to my transition, and the transition actually happened during the pandemic. September of 2020. And actually I was doing both at the same time, right? My paid job was nursing and my passion work kind of was organized. And I was doing some voter restoration for Alabama, and actually it's a delegation in performing our feature, the national coalition that I was also the lead organizer for. And the coordinator actually introduced the idea of Appalshop to me because I had no idea what Appalshop was. And actually he was like, oh, there's this job. Tiffany, you'd be wonderful for it. And I think you should apply. And it's called Appalshop. And I was like, his name's Adam. I said, Adam, I don't even own an iPhone. I don't want to work for Steve Jobs. I'm so against that whole cult life, right? And he was like, no, not Apple. Appalshop. And I was like, what is that? And he sent me the link and I looked at it and I was like, dang, this is so cool. He's like, yeah, but I'm telling you about this project that's happening through Roadside Theater. And you need to do this because this is a national organizing gig. And I think you'd be perfect. And I kind of hesitated on a bit, Tina, because I'm used to having something that's concrete, and organizing usually is very whimsical and there's not a lot of stability in it, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I might do this. I was on the fence about it, and Adam actually called me every day. He's like a preacher's kid. And I don't know if you know about preacher's kids, but he like, well, let me tell you something. I don't mean it. This is not a regular stereotype of them being bad, because I really think Adam's good. But he was just so like convincing. He was like, Tiffany, I'm telling you, you need to do this. This could be life changing. You're an incredible organizer and you need to do this. I'm telling you, you need to do it. I was like, okay, Adam, I'm going to do it. So he called me on the last day and was like, did you do it? I was like, yeah, I did. And I had the most interesting interview process that I've ever had in my life with coming on to Appalachia. They actually asked me to like make up a game on the spot, which became like one of my favorite icebreaker games called Random Thoughts. And it was just wild and crazy. But in long story short, I ended up getting a job, and my journey began from Mississippi to Kentucky to West Baltimore, Maryland to Wisconsin in a matter of like 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
So during the pandemic, we were masked up. We were, like I was saying, I just don't want to be responsible for a massive outbreak. So I was talking to my predecessor and I was like, well, we got to make sure that we're masking up. We got to make sure that we're taking tests. I want them to test before I come. I'm going to test before I go. So my nursing chops came in handy for that, so that we weren't causing a massive outbreak. But it was really, really cool to be able to go from nursing, just feet first into this organizing role and learning about Appalshop. That was the first week of my training, was just like getting rooted here and seeing it was like fall, and Appalachia is so beautiful in the fall. It'll make anybody fall in love, easily. Like, I don't want to leave this place. So we started there, and then we went to the other delegation. So that's kind of what happened.
The journey. So tell me how because you also led a youth-based nonprofit in Columbus for a decade. So what lessons from that chapter did you carry over into your current role?
Yeah, that's crazy. Memphis Town Community Builders is a nonprofit that myself and several other of my friends, we started from a community called Memphis Town. And we grew up there, and we were talking about all the things that happened when we were kids, but we had a couple of generations that kind of, transition and moved around. So they were kind of missing that. What's the word I'm listening? They were missing like the pride, the Memphis Town pride that we had. And so we were on an adventure to start something. We wanted everybody to be connected. Well, here's the thing. None of us had any nonprofit experience, like nothing. All we knew was like, we knew that we cared about our community and we didn't like what was going on. We didn't like the criminal elements that we found ourselves surrounded by. We didn't like the trash. That was the first thing that really catapulted us into action, because it was very trashy in Memphis Town. We like to keep our yards and our property clean. So we did a couple of things like right out of pocket, like just making it happen. But then we were interested in applying for a grant, and then they told us this language. Are you guys a 501c3? And we were like, what the heck?
What?
501c3? Are we that? And it was like, well, you've got to have this tax exempt status in order to do this. And none of us knew about it. And so I was the secretary, so they tasked me with finding out about it. So I was going around to people asking them about how to go about doing this. And I'm going to tell you a secret. Nobody wanted to tell you how to do it. They wanted to charge you an arm and a leg. And of course, like, we didn't have no money. We was doing it out of like it. So, and I had a mentor, and she said to me, she said, Tiffany, you could do that. Print the application out and read the instructions and do it. So the lesson that I'm bringing from that work into this work is, even if you don't really know how to do it, just go for it anyway. So I printed out the application. It's very intimidating. It's all these pages. And, it's like all the different schedules. What schedule do I choose? And what do we want to really do? But I sat down and I took my time and got it. And we actually got it expedited. So I learned all those steps. And I probably could do it again today. Not that I want to, but if I need to.
But you could.
I could do it. So even if you're not sure about it, be fueled by your passion, because we wanted to make a difference in our community, and we wanted to really solidify the legacy that was Memphistown, that is Memphistown right now. And so we had to figure out how to do that. And even though we didn't know how to do it, we just kind of was brave enough to try it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely bringing that into, like, as a nurse, I never even dreamed of being executive director of such a prestigious arts institution. Like, how in the world did that happen? But bringing in that curiosity, bringing in that passion, and letting that lead me into like uncharted territory is something I definitely am bringing into the role from that time of being over Memphistown Community Builders, for sure.
Well, that's a great segue, because that's my next question. So Appalshop, for people who are not familiar with it, they have a rich history dating back to 1969. It was founded as the Appalachian Film Workshop, which was a project of the federal government's War on Poverty, which those who listen to the show know we've talked about before on this show. How did you talked about how you first learned about Appalshop, but what does it mean to you to now serve in that role with such history from Appalshop and what they currently do and what they've done in the past, and now you get to be at the helm of that?
Oh, man, yeah. Man, it means a lot to me, Tina. I get to do something that I truly enjoy every single day. And I work with such amazing, inspirational, creative people. For me in this role, I'm going to back up a bit, because I don't think this is talked about enough, about how expansive Appalachia is, the region is. From the tippy tops bordering Canada all the way down to about 22 counties in Mississippi, which is where I'm from. I had no idea that Mississippi was considered Appalachia. They don't teach us that in grade school. They talk about Alabama, but they leave out Mississippi. And what I love to do in my time as executive director is for us, because Appalshop's history really has focused on Central Appalachia. And we have the largest composition of Appalachian culture in the world.
Wow.
But I want to push us to be a little more expansive and really include all of Appalachia, because I really feel like the southern the southern region of Appalachia is sometimes left out of discussions, and also the identity of being Appalachian, right?
Yeah.
I had to come to Central Kentucky to even be introduced to Appalachian culture. And what I find is that there's a lot of similarities, and the reason why is that we're all in this region together. But I think it's important. And also what I think is important is to uplift the many different cultures that's inside of Appalachia, right? Yeah. Outside of my work with Performing Our Future, my program director at the time for Roadside Theater asked me a question, and it was, what do you want to do here? And then I said, I want to tell stories about people who look like me. Mm-hmm. I want people, when they think of Appalachia as a little Black, brown girl, that they see themselves in this work, and they see themselves reflected in this work that we're doing at Appalshop. And I know that people outside of this region, I've heard it a million times, are the Black people there? Are there Asians there? Are there Native people there? The answer is yes, and some, and some. You just have to come and see for yourselves. So I want this to be inclusive. I want to dispel the stereotypes that it's just one way to be Appalachian. And I want people to really want to come and explore the region for themselves. There's a lot of beauty here. There's a lot of culture here. There's a lot of richness here. And I just want people to be curious about it and come see us.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This summer, children face hunger with no school meals to count on. No food, no comfort, just hunger that won't go away. Thousands of children in Appalachia faced long days without a single meal. But your gift to Christian Appalachian Project can make a difference. You can help fill empty plates and restore hope. Give now at christianapp.org.
We didn't really talk about Appalshop and what Appalshop does. So we mentioned some of the music, and they do film and audio recordings and all that. So tell people, what is Appalshop? What does Appalshop do?
Everything.
In the community?
So we are a storytelling, arts, and media organization. Of course, you mentioned getting our start as the Appalachian Film Workshop in 1969. Since that time, we have expanded to community theater, to a radio station, WMT, Real People Radio. We've got Community Media Institute, which houses our prevention diabetes programming and All Access EKY, which is the largest distributor of reproductive contraceptives in the state. Of course, mention our archive, who houses the largest collection of Appalachian artifacts in the world. And of course, our award-winning film, which houses also AMI, Appalachian Media Institute, which gives interns over the summer a start to finish workshop on how to create their own documentaries. So that's just a snippet of what we offer here at the shop, and we're just churning along. I've got such an incredible staff, Tina. I'm thinking about them. They are just so wonderful, and they come up with wonderful, wonderful ideas all the time. So that's basically, in a nutshell, if I could stay hyper-focused and not go off on a tangent and tell you a little bit about what everybody's doing. That's pretty much what we do. And all the visions that they have and the dreams that they have, it's our job to make sure that we can make sure they have the resources that they need to get that done.
That is awesome. And I hope people will check out your website and see some of the things that you all have done over the years. And those who are close by can travel to the area to see the work firsthand. But another thing that we know that happens, and in particular here in Eastern Kentucky, is we have a lot of flooding and a lot of natural disasters that impacts the way of life for people. And that happened at Appalshop as well. The 2022 floods were quite devastating for Appalshops, for their archives in particular. I think that was right around the time that you were coming on board. So can you share with us, how did those floods impact Appalshop, and then what the recovery process has been like, and what has been meaningful for you all to preserve, and what maybe are some of the things that got lost that can't be replaced? That's a whole bunch in a very long question.
Yeah. And actually, we're coming up on the anniversary of that flood next week. It was a devastating time. I actually was programmatic staff at that time, working with the Performing Our Future Coalition, and I was in Mississippi when that hit. And my mom, she called me and she said, your friends in Kentucky, they're in Eastern Kentucky. And I said, yeah, which was very strange for my mom to call and say that. I said, yeah. And she said, they've been hit by this massive flood. And I immediately tried to call, and such a scary, heartbreaking time, because all of my friends I was calling, they weren't answering the phones, but they weren't answering the phones because their lines were down, and if you're in rural America, you depend your phone, your cell phone is based on Wi-Fi, and if that's out, honey, you could just hang it up. So it was very scary. But coming up, when I did get a message, and I ended up calling a good friend of mine and saying I'm going to come up immediately, but she stopped me in my tracks. She said, Tiffany, it's not safe to travel here. And I actually had to end up waiting a couple of weeks before I could even safely get up here. But when I did get here, what I found, Tina, was a lot of devastation. But the other side of that was a very strong sense of community. People had come from all around the country to just be here with us at the shop. The entire contents of our vault was, I want to say destroyed, but I can't bring myself to even say that because we have been actively in recovery and we've recovered about 85% of that. So I would say they were affected.
Yeah.
They were affected. The artifacts were affected, and just today we looked at some footage that was there was all kind. This 16 millimeter film reel was retrieved from in a tree and on a sidewalk. They restored it. Now it's cool looking now. It's of course not the original version, right? But it's so cool. They've spliced the reel together, and we got a chance to listen to the recording and see the visual content of it. And I think that's such a fitting visual for what happened, right? If you had saw it, you probably would have tossed it in the trash. But because we have talented people like our archive director at the time, Caroline Rubens, and other archive staff, Shane and Josh and Leo, and our current archivist, who's also a co-founding archivist, Chad Hunter, who really care about the work, and they're really talented. And so it was just a way for us to be reconnected with community, an opportunity for us to really be working elbow to elbow with community members, and for them to come in and lend us a hand. There was so many stories that we heard about the impact of Appalshop and why people had come from so far to come back and just help us to understand that we weren't alone in this recovery, and that, we had given a lot, this organization had given a lot to community, and community wanted to give back. And speaking of that, we're currently still in recovery phase, right? We are in a temporary office over here in Jenkins. We've purchased the old hospital building here, which is outside of the floodplain, literally up on a hill. And we are beginning to vision what that will look like, starting with making sure that we have a safe, secure home for our archive. So we're actually right now currently in the phase of taking bids for demolition of the hospital building. There has been talk of opening and expanding our archive to be an Appalachian community archive. We've got big dreams with an interactive museum for the archive. So there's a lot in the works happening, and we hope to be able to share something more official very, very soon.
Awesome. That is super exciting. I feel like as I was listening to you talk about the work that you all do there and how the flood impacted, and we know that recovery is a long process. It is not something where, 1 week your house is flooded or your business is flooded, and then in a couple of months you're back to business as usual, especially the impact of the 2022 floods. But I know that your leadership, that you're going to help navigate through that. I'm so excited to hear about your new facilities and preserving the archive and being able to even salvage some of the things that could have been lost. But I am so appreciative of those who have the expertise in archival and recovery and those kind of things. You've mentioned now a couple of times Performing Our Future. We have not talked about that. So how does this coalition reflect your vision for community-driven storytelling and ownership? And can you, again, tell us a little bit about what Performing Our Future is and how did you get involved in it and what is your connection still?
Yes, Performing Our Future is this multicultural, multiracial coalition of these communities who've been extracted of natural resources, human resources, and ideas across the United States. And the idea was to really, really have a tribe of folks come together and dream about how they can turn these hidden talents into economic development opportunities. And so that work started back in 2015. What we were able to do during my time as lead organizer was really, really work on a very important factor. And I think that this is key for the work that I'm doing right now at the shop and what I'd love to see happening all across all programming is the relational aspect. And I really think that this is key for a lot of things, not just in the arts, but in community organizing and anything that you want to see successful and anything that you want to have buy-in from people. You have to start a base level on building relationships. And that is really an important lesson that I take from my work with Performing Our Future, especially in the climate that we've got now. Politics is very polarized. Even sometimes ideas can be very polarized. But when you find commonality in values, that's when you're able to build. You build trust, and then you get real, real clear on what it is that folks want. What is it that they need? And then you start to build an outline towards that. Another thing that I love, the methodology that Performing Our Future uses, and I think is a great organizing tool as well, is the story circle methodology. And we call it a story circle, but it's actually a listening circle because only one person gets to talk at a time. And you really, how you go about this is it's a very vulnerable space. You get about 8 to 10 people in a circle. You come up with a simple prompt. Tell a story about a time when your community meant the most to you, when you realize the community meant the most to you. And when people start telling their stories, it often spins up some type of gem where you can say, okay, all of these people were connected to their school, or all these folks were connected to a particular church. Something spins up out of that and connects folks. And what happens after that is people are vulnerable, they get a chance to listen, and people want to stay connected. They want to stay connected. They often want to pick up on something that was mentioned in the story circle. So you got people talking.
What role do you think the arts play in building power and resilience in Appalachian communities?
Arts can remove barriers from communication. It's important that we don't lose that and think that, sometimes we can focus on all of the things that's going wrong, and we sometimes forget the rich culture and the amenities that we have in this country and in this region. The arts are an important reminder of those things. And also, I think that the arts are truly the keeper of history as well. A lot in civil rights, a lot of our history was told through music, through song. And I think we do the same thing here with film, with radio, with the archive, with Community Media Institute. We've got some amazing, amazing, amazing documentaries that's going to be coming out at the end of the summer from our Appalachian Media Institute. And it's going to be informative, but also from the perspective of these young folks and what they're seeing and how they are interpreting the world that we live in. And I think that's so important. Oftentimes, you don't hear from young folks, or their voices are really like watered down. And so I think that we may need to amplify their voices, and we probably should be a little bit quieter, take a back seat to them, and let them really, really show us what ideas they have and how they see this world.
Yeah. That's a great segue, because one of my questions was, when you think about the young people that you all are working with, what are your hopes for the region and for these young people that you're working with daily through Appalshop?
My hope for young people in the region is that they fully embrace their Appalachian culture, that they define it in their own words, and that they help us to see a vision for the future. We can learn a lot from young folks. We can learn a lot from their curiosity. They experiment a lot. And I want us to really, really lift them up and give them the support and the resources that they need so that they can be successful. That's my hope. Talk to a lot of them, and they say that sometimes it feels like in order for them to be successful, that they have to move out of the region. And my hope is that that won't be so. And I hope that Appalshop can help to garner their skill set and their toolkits and give them the resources so that they can be successful at home.
And how do you think, as some of them may be thinking about moving out, or people may be trying to hold on to the culture and document that, how do you think the work of Appalshop works to combat the negative stereotypes about Appalachia?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's important that people get to tell their own stories in their own words. And even something that sounds so small as letting people talk to into a camera, or to speak into a microphone, or to share out their genre, their favorite genre of music on the radio station, can be very impactful. Yeah. Because it lets others know in the region that there's somebody like you out here. You listening to WMT, and you could hear anything from bluegrass to the latest hip hop that you think you would never hear. So I mean, identifying with people who are like you, but we would never know that if we don't have the means to hear, or the means to have those voices amplified. And I think that's important work that we do at the shop, of uplifting voices that are unheard, unseen.
I love it. Girl, that's a powerful thing. It's not just a powerful thing for young people. It's a powerful thing for all of us. And friend, our time got away real quick, as I knew that it would. But we never let our guests get out without us asking this last question. The mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. Those four values: hope, transformation, love, and service. Which one resonates with you the most when you think of your work in Appalachia?
My experience in Appalachia has been nothing like I would have thought it was. It has been such a pleasant, wonderful surprise, and it's been filled with wonderful, wonderful people who just love you and feed you till you burst open. It's just so much hope and love and service and it's all of these things. Because when I go home and I tell people I live in Kentucky, they're like, Kentucky? What are you doing there? I wish that I could say, just hop in this car with me and come and see for yourself, because you will want to be here too. Yeah. I encourage anybody that's listening to be curious. Come check us out at Appalshop. We've got two locations. Our WMT studios is in Whitesburg, as well as our Solar Pavilion, and our temporary offices and one of our forever homes here in Jenkins. Please come visit us. Visit our website at appalshop.org. Tina, I'm sure that you're going to place a link somewhere so that people can access it easily. And I just encourage you to visit any part of Appalachia. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. I say fall is my favorite, but I don't know. Summertime might be a close second.
Tiffany, it has been such a joy to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yes, thanks for having me, Tina. Anytime you want to have me back, just give me a call.
We'd love to. Our guest today has been Tiffany Sturdivant. She's the Executive Director of Appalshop and lead organizer of Performing Our Future. Her story is a powerful reminder that leadership rooted in joy, justice, and cultural pride can only change the world. one community, one voice, and one story at a time. We hope you've enjoyed the show today and that you'll check out next week's episode. Tell your friends to check us out too. Y'all know we always tell you, please leave us a review. If you love the show, you can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels and find the podcast at wearecap.org/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We are so excited that you joined us today. Please be sure to subscribe so that you never miss a new episode, and we'll see you next week.